We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata. Mike, what's up?
As we have done the past, I think 3 podcasts, saw a movie, saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie. No spoilers coming. Very fun. I liked it. I know it's probably more of a kid's movie.
No.
So is, some of these other ones, but I loved it. I mean, I was as a child Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. Go Michelangelo. That's my favorite one. It was just fun. Like they felt more teenager than I think a lot of times when, you can tell very obviously this is a 40-year-old man trying to, how do you do, fellow kids? My favorite part though is just, I love that all this different animation styles are coming forward. This is not a movie podcast, but I'm not an expert on this. I just love that it felt like for a long time, everybody just kind of did what Pixar did, where it's like, we're going to do realistic and, it's really pretty to look at. And then it kind of changed. I mean, I don't think Spider-Verse was the first one. That was the first one I noticed that Spider-Verse was like, this is a little bit more not built for photorealism, more just like action, fun, almost comic booky. And then Puss in Boots: The Last Wish kind of did that too, or to a little bit more abstract level. And this is more abstract than either one. Some of the humans had like their eyes, don't even look at it, like one's below the other. It's just stylized though. And it felt very 90s and fun. And I don't know. I just love that there's different animation styles coming forward because, animated movies are cool. I like them.
I thought I said this on the podcast, but I can't remember. I once thought the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a scary movie when I was a kid. I mean, I grew up with all of the tapes and everything like that because there were tapes at one time, and I was like, man, these people are scary.
The name just feels so 80s drug driven, right? They're teenagers. What else? And they're mutants.
Yeah,
ninjas, mutant ninjas. All right, that sounds pretty good. And they're turtles. What? Write it down. Turtles.
But it was the coolest thing ever because I remember. Yeah. Well, you remember? I don't know if you did this, but like when we were like in kindergarten or first grade, you could dress up for Halloween parties, and the boys were always the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They always had that costume. It was that or Boomer. Of the Bengals, or the Jeff Blakes. It was
the Jeff Blakes. Nice.
Throwbacks.
No, I grew up in Brown Steelers territory, so I didn't get that. It would be like a Palomalu would be that. But I was a ninja once. I was never a full Ninja Turtle. I think that costume probably cost more than just getting the little outfit with a hood.
That's true. Well, this is kind of our movie segment now. Now that you go and see a movie every single
Did you see Barbie?
I didn't see it yet.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. I think I'm gonna wait until it's on TV, one of the streaming services, and watch it there. I'm sure it's different at the movie theater, but I'm just like, I'm not gonna get to the movies. So
I mean, I don't know if Barbie's one that I felt like you had to see in theaters. Like I enjoyed it, but Oppenheimer, if you were interested in that was much more like a go see that in theaters because you probably won't feel the same way if you watch it at home.
Okay, well, I will go to the movies at some point. But right now, it feels like there's something every weekend, and football's here, which is really exciting. And one thing that happens almost every Friday or towards the end of the weekend is a signing by the Cincinnati Bengals. They had the Joe Mixon news. I remember it was a Friday night. The Logan Wilson news breaking on Friday night, which is absolutely, I wouldn't even say surprising. I want to give Dave Lapham credit. I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he was talking about it and almost kind of hinted towards a couple weeks ago that Logan Wilson could be one of the first extensions to get done. Joe and his camp and the Bengals front office, they're keeping quiet, and I still respect all of that. I feel like it's going to get done. I think it's going to get done in August. Maybe it's a first week of September situation, but it still feels like a training camp thing that gets worked out with Joe and his camp. Not too concerned about it, but Logan Wilson was done. And what's so surprising about this 4-year extension, $37.25 million. And we talked about on the podcast when they signed Jermaine Pratt. I felt like the number was a little bit low, and this was a good linebacker market. If you wanted to just go ahead and get him signed, you don't have him go play into this year, try to work something out next year, and you bank on having Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson for the next few years. What did you think about the extension?
I was surprised at the number, a little bit under 10 per year. In my mind, the cheap-ish realistic value is probably like 12 per year. I do think if he hit the open market, we get much more than this, because I'm not even thinking he gets Tremaine Edmonds money, which was over, I think, $20 million a year. But you look at a guy 2 years ago who hit the open market from the Falcons, and Foyesade Oluwakun, I believe is the name, led the league in tackles. And then I'm going to look it up real quick. I don't want to be wrong, but I believe he got 15 per year. And that was, let's see. Okay. Yep, 15 per year, 345. I thought he could have easily hit that if you hit the open market. Just, it might not be the best team that's offering that to you, but I think somebody's going to offer that to you. You go to a Super Bowl, you're the best linebacker, you're the green dot captain of the defense for a Super Bowl level defense. And the defense was really good on the playoff runs. It wasn't like, the offense just carried them. There was actually sometimes a little bit the other way around, not fully. I don't think it's as far as some people say, but I do think the better unit in the playoffs so far has been the defense, and you want a piece of that. So I could absolutely see they stole 2 players this offseason, the Panthers, just giving them 3 for 45. Like, we need a linebacker, and, we want the championship level pedigree, hopefully full championship pedigree. After this year, but getting 3 for 45, could have totally seen it. Could have actually seen more like 3 for 47 or something. Just like, hey, I'm better than that guy. Like, give me a little bit more. Instead, and I'm not gonna say it's just a hometown discount. We don't know the full market. That's just my thoughts on his market. It does feel like one though. It feels like he could have gotten more out there. And this is what we were talking about when Pratt signed. It's just, there seems to be 2 markets with linebackers. There's the market for the Tremaine Edmonds types, the Roquan Smith types, the ones that are going to push for, league leading, like break the bank money. And then you have the next wave. And for some reason, they're not signing for like 4 per year under what the top guys are signing. It's like it's a real discount.
Yeah.
And both Pratt and Wilson coming in below $10 million per year. That's quite the get for the Bengals. I think that's a great deal. Both those are great deals, but the Logan Wilson one says it was just signed specifically. Great deal. Much under what I thought. This is more what I thought Pratt might be able to sign for. And he isn't the captain, even if I have my own beliefs about him being just as good. And maybe last year slightly better, but this is more what I thought he would get from the market. I think the NFL likes Wilson more. I think the team likes him more. I think you factor in the off the field and the captain, the green dot communication stuff. It makes sense. And that's, this long way to say Bengals did a great job with another value contract.
When you think of Logan Wilson, and you could put Jermaine Pratt in that category, where would you rank them on the most important Bengals players of the core?
Okay. So is this offense and defense?
Overall, yeah.
And I just want to set a time frame in my mind, like for the next 3 years, 5 years, next 3 years. Okay. Well, Burrow's number 1, and I think he's in his own tier. And then you have Chase. I think Chase is probably, it's weird to do tiers, but I think Chase might be in his own tier. Then you go to T. And I'll stop doing tiers. So not in the top 3 in my mind. I think I have T at number 3. I wonder, I would personally put Reader above them, but I don't know if the Bengals agree with that, and that is upsetting. But for the next 3 years, it was 5 years, I think I'd put them over him because, you're probably missing out. He's probably not going to keep playing at the same level by then.
Yeah.
But so that's 4. I think for 3 years I put Hendrickson above him too. But after that, them versus Orlando Brown. It's interesting. Okay, I think I'll go Orlando Brown. So 6 and 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Peter King wrote a piece, and he actually put about this contract, and he had mentioned Logan Wilson as a top 5. on this Bengals squad.
I guess I had him just outside, but we know my thoughts on DJ Reader.
But here's the thing. You're watching every game, and no offense to Peter King, who I absolutely love, and he does watch a lot of NFL games. He probably isn't watching every single Logan Wilson game or Jermaine Pratt game. So I feel like you ranked them perfectly. And DJ Reader, that's going to be the topic of conversation, because you look at guys like Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, they just extended Trey Hendrickson for another year on the defense side of the ball. If someone would have told me, hey, Lindsay, they're going to have a couple extensions happening when training camp starts and one in August, I would have said, oh, it's going to be offense. It's going to be an offense extension, and a little surprised what they were able to do on the defensive side of the ball, which is still huge because this defense is legit. Some would say that it's, it outplayed the offense in the playoffs over the last few years.
I did say that.
And it's fine. It's fine to say that. I don't think it's a hot take. Here's the thing about the offense is the offense, it's so fun and exciting, but there's still more there. There's still more potential there when it comes to the postseason.
And they've had to deal with more injuries, I think.
Yes, and their line, no offensive line.
That's what I'm basically meaning. Yeah. Just the offensive line has just been banged up every time they've hit the playoffs. Or, in the case of 2021, not only banged up, but also terrible heading into the playoffs before that.
I still can't believe. I know it would have just been a story if Joe would have been able to win that Super Bowl, because it's unbelievable what he dealt with against. If Hakeem Adeniji doesn't make the Bengals roster, we are very close to 4 out of 5 of the starting Bengals offensive linemen from 2 years ago in the Super Bowl not being in the NFL. I mean, it's still unbelievable if you think about it. You can go to the divisional game coming back in the second half versus the Chiefs, and then in Los Angeles going up against that. Like, it's absolutely incredible what Joe was able to do. So that's why I know a lot of people want to point out weapons, not to get too far off topic when it comes to Joe. But look at his offensive line. Even though I feel like it was a little bit better last year for the majority of the season, in the most important game of the season, he was without the majority of his line. So just overall, I agree with you when it comes to the future and the core of those guys. But when you hear, hey, the Cincinnati Bengals are paying linebackers, what do you think about extending linebackers overall?
My thoughts are a bit of extend your good players regardless of position. I know that there is some belief linebackers. I think at some point the analytics people are going to come down to nothing really matters except quarterback. And that is somewhat true. So it's various levels of how much does this position matter and how much are you willing to pay for it. I don't think either one of these deals is bad. I don't think them paying both is bad. I think that, sometimes when you have the issue with the running back thing is they don't have a shelf life either. It goes bad during the contract. You look at most of those ones, and it hasn't gone well during that deal due to injury or whatever else. And linebackers, I feel like, do have a little bit of a shelf life. CJ Mosley's still out there playing well. Demario Davis is playing great at his age. Devontae David's playing great at his age. So it doesn't feel like they hit that wall at the same, at 26, 27, 28. It feels more like in the 30s. That's when you'll be concerned. And I named some guys that are in their 30s and playing very well. But yeah, I don't have too many negative thoughts on, they paid a linebacker. Oh, that's terrible team management. You can only pay these positions and just draft linebackers. We watched this team draft linebackers. It was terrible. It was terrible for a decade. They got Vontaze Burfict. Was he a draft, real late draft pick, or was he undrafted? I don't even remember.
He was undrafted.
I thought so. Yeah, so not even drafted.
College stuff.
Not even drafted. The best one they had during that time. Not even drafted. Ray Maualuga. What was that? It was a premium pick. I think it was a second rounder. That'd be the other one that was a long-term starter. So a second rounder, an undrafted guy, and there were probably 10 other guys drafted in that period that they were trying to make work, and none of them really worked.
No, I agree with you. You got to pay your best players, and it doesn't have to be just a certain position group. And the same thing, if you look at the defensive side of the ball, it's kind of exciting because I thought, look, they're going to draft their defense and they're going to pay their offense. But at the same time, you look at the defensive line right now, if Miles Murphy works out, You get Joseph Sign. I don't know how long term he's going to be here just because of his agent. But hey, it's a different position, and maybe that'll be a different situation when it comes to contract extension time. You get Trey Hendrickson, you have Sam Hubbard out there, you have your linebackers, and then in your safety room, if Dax Hill works out and Cam Taylor-Britt as a cornerback too, and Dax in the safety room, to be determined on what the Nick Scott situation or Jordan Battle future looks like in the secondary. You're not looking too bad on the defensive side of the ball.
It does. We're going to get there. You know, I'm going to save it.
Yeah, we are going to get there because we are
going to talk Nick Scott, Jordan Battle, but that is a next segment. That's a teaser that we do in the business. Nick Scott, Jordan Battle, training camp battles. Who is taking the lead?
We love this. This is what they call on TV, as what you mentioned, a teaser going into the break. And when we come back, we will talk about training camp battles. I know everybody can't wait. On It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Again, Logan Wilson extended. We'll hopefully hear some more extension news before that regular season game versus Cleveland Browns. But right now it's training camp. Training camp, preseason preview later this week. Let's focus on training camp battles. Give me the ones you're looking at right now.
All right. The obvious. Well, we'll go with the one we teased. Nick Scott, Jordan Battle, Dax Hill, kind of. I will say there was one interesting thing. Robert Mays of the Athletic Football Show, who I believe does have some contacts in the NFL, it sounded like he was saying that Nick Scott solidified and Jordan Battle's fighting Dax Hill, but I haven't heard that from anybody else, so I think he may have misheard something. I think it's Dax Hill solidified. He's a first-round pick, man. They're going to play him unless he's terrible. And then Nick Scott versus the third-round pick, Jordan Battle. And it feels like most of the training camp reports have been it's pretty much Nick Scott with the first team. And it was early on in training camp. I think he's now solidly on that second team, but he started out, Jordan Battle was third team to start training camp, basically, right?
Yeah, there was a report of some kind of tightness. Who knows? I feel like that was kind of late when it comes to an update on Jordan Battle. It just feels like Jordan Battle is going to have a Dax Hill season, his rookie year, where we just don't see much of Jordan Battle this year.
Unless there's injury and whatever else. I do think if he loses the battle,
get the last name.
If he loses that to start the season, it's Nick Scott, Dax Hill, which is what I've been predicting. I do think that doesn't mean he's out of it for the rest of the year. I think, you look at what Cam Taylor-Britt did, and I know that some of that was injury, but the injury happened at the same time as they were kind of going to test him out against the Browns without Eli Apple, kind of let Eli Apple rest after he gave up a big play to the Falcons the week before. And they're like, okay, well, let's see Cam Taylor-Britt. This might be the change. This might be a change they're going to make. Cam Taylor-Britt starting next to Chidobe Awuzie. Then Awuzie gets hurt, and we don't really think of it as Eli Apple got benched for Cam Taylor-Britt midseason because they both started.
Yeah. Could
that happen with the Jordan Battle, Nick Scott thing? Certainly. That would be if Nick Scott, week 7, week 8, still – if he hasn't played well up to that point, and Jordan Battle's shown enough in practice that Lou Anarumo thinks he's ready, he'll throw him out there. But Lou Anarumo is not going to throw him out there before he thinks he's ready. I think that's the biggest thing is we've heard Anarumo talk a bit about defensive backs. That's, his position group and how he doesn't want to put any of those guys out there before they're ready. I don't think he said this, or maybe he did, but in my mind, confidence is so important to be a defensive back in the NFL. Like you have to be confident but you can't second guess anything. That it's probably after quarterback. That's where you need the most confidence is defensive back, like especially corner, but safety too. Those guys, you have to be, confident in what you're doing and your ability, etc. Or else I think that's part of the issue of what happened with Jeff Okudah. And now he's with the Falcons being traded for pennies. Yeah, that's all my thoughts on it. I don't think this battle's over either. But when you keep saying battle, I don't think that this is decided yet. I think preseason games are huge. Preseason games are going to be huge for all of these training camps. Fights for the top dog. I'm trying to avoid the word battle, but for all these training camp battles, let's just ignore it. These training camps huge, but I think the preseason games are bigger. I think that's where you saw the difference between Jackson Carman and Cordell Volson started in training. There was a little in training camp, and then I felt like it really hit after that first preseason game. Could that be what you see with some of these? Sure. I think the preseason games are huge for this. So that's my main thought on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's what I'm looking forward to. To be completely honest with you, when I think of preseason games, I'm like, please just get out healthy. The majority of it's going to be rookies out there, guys who are fighting for a roster spot. The wide receiver room will be something to look at when it comes to, will Charlie Jones be out there a lot? I know he's dealing with a shoulder injury. Will that just be kind of minimal work for him? Be more of a special team situation? I just don't know what it's going to look like, but I would say at the safety position, if you are the Cincinnati Bengals, and we'll get more to what the preview will look like because we'll have the joint practice to recap before we get into the game versus the Packers this coming Friday at Paycor Stadium. But when you think of the secondary as a whole, and we know what Dax Hill was last year, what he was able to do, or the amount of minimal reps that he had his rookie year, what do you expect to see from him? Will he be someone who gets a lot of preseason snaps, or will it be, hey, we don't want to risk Dax getting injured?
That's tough. I would probably play him a little bit because, and I'd play Scott too. I just want to get their communication working and at a higher level. Preseason games are the closest thing you're going to get to an NFL game. It's still not there, still not the same speed, still not everything else, still not as loud. But I want to be able to get their communication because your secondary communication is the second most important, I think, in a position group right after offensive line communication. You're going to have your secondary. It's the same idea. They need to pass things off. They need to work together. They need to know what each other are doing. Where are you giving help to the corner? Where does the corner expecting help, etc. So I would play them a little bit just because they've never played next to each other. And I mean, for Hill, he's played a couple snaps, but never really played a full game at safety. So I don't want to play him a ton and risk an injury, but I do think I would a drive, something like that. I don't even know if I would go for a quarter. I want to get a little bit there just so they get a feel for the NFL game and the feelings, the speed, the sound, etc.
Yeah, we'll stay on the defensive side of the ball, but just the cornerback room right now. Look, I don't think Taylor Britt's going to be out there that much. I just don't want to risk. No. And I know Zach Taylor's okay with playing some of his starters, but if it's anything, it might be a series. You have guys like Cheeto, who I don't expect to see at all in the preseason. I think that is a smart idea. You just
Mike Hilton, nope.
Those guys are on the side. But when you think of guys like DJ Turner or DJ Ivy, what do you expect to see from them and just overall when it comes to camp battles?
How many snaps did Dax Hill play in the preseason last year? Because that's kind of what I'm expecting from DJ Turner. I think it was multiple quarters, if I'm not wrong. I think he's going to play plenty, especially because Turner's not in a position to start.
No, it's more of a next year situation. I would say like what we thought Cam Taylor Britt was going to be his rookie year. Maybe a DJ Turner where Jordan Battle was the same situation, obviously different positions, but they're kind of getting that rest their rookie year. And you're just saying, hey, this is what it's like your first year in the NFL. Maybe you'll get some reps here and there, and hopefully nobody's injured where you'd have to see these guys as starters. But I agree with you. It doesn't hurt to put DJ Turner out there.
Murphy too, just get him out there, get him snaps. And then, after that, Jordan Battle, he's obviously going to play plenty. So
DJ Ivy too.
DJ Ivy's going to play a ton, and that is an end of roster position battle where Ivy has been making waves in training camp. So does that translate to the preseason game? If it does, are we looking at, a Jalen Davis type, maybe getting knocked off the roster? Or maybe it's Sidney Jones. I don't think they have any real money tied up there, but who knows? I think he is pushing for that last corner roster spot, and I think he's in a better spot today than he was when we talked about it before training camp started.
Let's flip sides. We'll go ahead and go to the offensive side of the ball. Like I mentioned before, Charlie Jones, I would just be surprised with him coming off an injury. I know he was back at practice on Monday, and they're going to have the Packers in town after we record this. So to be determined on how many reps he gets against the Packers defense. But overall, I just feel like he's still someone that I'm okay if it's just a series or two, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the second preseason game he's getting a few more reps. But how would you handle that?
Yeah, the injury is a tricky part because otherwise I just play him plenty. I mean, he's not a guy you're counting on to start. You want to get him as many reps as possible because he's a valuable learning reps. And you want to see about the punt stuff, the punt return ability, the kick return ability. See if that is a real spot for him on the roster or if you still need a Trent Taylor on the roster just to return punts, just to safely return punts. The injury is why I don't think he'll play that much in the first preseason game. I think they'll be cautious with that. Yeah. But otherwise, I think it's play him. Just play him. Trent Irwin's probably going to play plenty of preseason snaps, right?
Yeah. And that's fine. And I mean, Trent Taylor, who I feel like is that he's on the outs when it comes to the wide receiver room right now.
Outside of winning the punt return job clearly, I think it can't even be like a slight edge for him, and they'll keep. I think he has to clearly, definitively win the punt return job. And I also think that also comes with Charlie Jones has to mess up because you know what Trent Taylor is, a punt returner. It's not overly exciting, but it's solid and it's safe. Can Charlie Jones provide that? Hopefully. If he can't, then I think you have the real dilemma. But yeah, I think all those guys will play plenty. How much do you think Jonah Williams plays in the first preseason game? Because he is in a position battle. They are going back and forth on the first team reps. I think he's going to play a little bit.
He's going to play a little bit.
And I know that that's a little scary with his injury history, but I think they're going to play him a little bit because they're giving Carmen a shot at that job.
No. So they are giving Carmen a shot at the job, and they should. It shouldn't just be Jonah Williams because he was the left tackle. I totally understand that.
And camp, it appears, has been that's the one that I think they got out there in practice, and it has been all Jonah Williams in camp.
And Zach Taylor
not starting, but just in terms of he's playing much better than Carmen is.
Well, Zach Taylor was going. He admitted before camp started they were going to rotate that position, and it made all the sense in the world. You should.
They have a little bit at least.
Yeah, put the best guys out there. Some days Jackson's out there with the ones, and then most of the time Jonah's out there. But Paul Dehner has a great article over on The Athletic with Jonah Williams, and he just seems, I don't know. He seems pumped about it, the whole situation, and just this is his opportunity. We talked about it before, that right tackle market right now. Maybe it doesn't work out at left tackle for him and he dominates at right tackle. He's going to go get the bag this offseason next offseason if he balls out. And
if he even plays at an above average level, he'll get plenty of money.
Yeah, so I think this is a great opportunity for him. Like I said before, I hope he has a career year. That means good things for his quarterback and the rest of the offensive line. So
I think he's going to play like 2 series,
maybe 2 series.
3 series. I think it could go to a quarter. I think he could play a full quarter.
Okay, so we'll make a bet right now. Oh. No, nobody wins anything, but we will talk about this. Bet we have nothing. But I think he plays series. Totally understand. Totally, I think that's going to happen. I think this offensive line, besides Alex Kappa, because he's dealing with that strain. Yeah, I think you got to be careful with that. I could see the offensive line with Orlando Brown get a few series.
Okay, is the bet? I think Jonah stays out there after everybody else goes out.
No,
I think he'll play a couple snaps with this. I think he'll play like a couple snaps with that second team offensive line.
Now I have to watch preseason games because now I'm going to wonder. But I'm going to the game Friday. I just planning on watching.
Yeah, I just think that it's a true position battle, and I think they are going to give Carmen the shot.
They should.
I think that also means that you have to give Jonah plenty of snaps to get an evaluation for him in the preseason.
I hope people understand this. I do think it should be a battle. You can't just give the job.
Oh, the other side is he has been injured most years of his career. So this is, every snap he's out there is a risky, you might not have a choice.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I just think it's for a starter who they feel are going to be the starters right now. I know it's early on and it's almost mid-August, but I feel like with Jonah Williams, it will be just a series. I would be really surprised if he's out there when the rest of the starters are on the side after they've they got a few reps in together, because I do think this offensive line will do that. I don't think they want to do that again. And the majority of the guys, besides Alex Cappa, because I don't know how they'll handle that, even though Frank Pollock seemed really chill about it, like it wasn't that big of a deal, but he wasn't at practice on Monday. We'll see more when they get back out there tomorrow, because we're recording this on a Tuesday and they had today off. But I think they're just going to be really smart with that stuff, and you want to take it easy with these guys. But yeah, I mean, maybe we will see that. I think we'd see a little more of Jackson Carman. I
think if you just get one series from Jonah, then the position battle might not be a serious thing.
You're right, because I mean, you would know right then and there. And it's the third preseason game that we really don't see anybody, right? It's like the last of the roster, and so we only have these two to really.
It used to be, before they did 3 preseason games, was like 4 years ago at this point. It used to be the third game got you the most snaps, and then nobody played the fourth game. And now now the second one you get the most snaps, and the third one nobody plays.
Yeah, so Friday night it's their only home preseason game, so they'll play the Packers, and it will be, if you're going to see any of the starters out there, that's going to be kind of not really the game to look at. It's going to be the following week. This one will just be kind of the rookies, guys fighting for their jobs, maybe a few starters getting some reps out there. But I think it's going to be absolutely crazy, because the NFL cut day is all on the same day, and what the league is going to look like after all the preseason games, and they make the majority of the cuts around the league, what that will look like for the overall rosters. But for me personally, I just want them to get in and out of preseason. I think I don't know. That's just where I stand right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know. I have been a little bit more to the proponent of, I think that you want to get them a few snaps, just because I do think part of last year was just based off of they didn't take any preseason snaps together, and a lot of them missed training camp. So this, when you get guys who have never played next to each other, the entire offensive line never played next to each other, that could be bad. And we saw it for like 6 weeks. I think we could have expedited that process a little bit, and it may have only been bad for 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks before coming together, just because they didn't have any time in camp to work together. But I want to get everybody out healthy, because that is the most important thing.
Yep, 100%. We'll have everything to recap from that preseason game when they get to work, and looking forward to their joint practice versus the Packers tomorrow. Next on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals were off today as we're recording on a Tuesday. The Packers are in town, and I have a feeling we won't see any fights like we did when the Rams were in town last year. I think everything's going to be pretty chill, hopefully. But do you like that when they have the joint practices?
Yeah, because there is a thing where, like, you play with guys so often, their moves, they know your moves, kind of getting that different feel. And this is way less related, but like when I play pickup basketball every weekend. When I play with my friends, like, they know exactly what I'm going to do most of the time. But when it's a stranger, it's like, well, I'm left-handed in basketball. This is like a mixed-handed thing, but we can talk about it later. But left-handed basketball, so I used to get a free bucket every time, because nobody expects me to be left-handed. I just drive right past them, get a left-handed layup. And then they switch that defense up, and I have to actually work. But I guess my friends, no, they know that. They're like, protect against the left. So that's just my thought, is just like, you want to get a different feel, just like guys that don't know exactly what you're going to do, because no matter how much tape they're watching and whatever else, it's not like when you go into a game week 1, even though they've played the Browns a ton.
Yeah.
Even though Orlando Brown's played Myles Garrett plenty, he doesn't know his moves down to a science, and see him every day in practice, and see him like, okay, this is what Myles does to attack me specifically all the time. Like, I have to protect myself against this. I think it's cool to get that different feel in there. And then, the ones play joint practice. I think that's the other big part, is you actually get, if Joe Burrow was healthy, he would throw a little bit in this game, in this practice. He would throw plenty in this practice, actually. Jordan Love's going to throw in the practice, and he's probably not going to play in the preseason game. So you actually get the one-on-ones, Jair Alexander against Jamar Chase. That's not happening in the preseason game. That's probably happening in this joint practice. So yeah, I like them. I like the joint practices, other than when you put the two competing Super Bowl. whatever they did last year. Even though Zach Taylor and Sean McVay, close friends, that doesn't mean your teams are.
Yeah, no, and it was too soon to have that. But yeah, we saw how that worked out. It's still unbelievable, that photo with the helmets, that even happened. But yeah, they'll get that in, back to work tomorrow. We're recording this, as I mentioned before, on a Tuesday. Jamar Chase has been in the media a few times this week. He was on NFL Network on Friday's practice. He was on with Kay Adams, who did a phenomenal job recapping training camp yesterday. I really enjoyed all of her interviews with the different players. And one thing I love about Jamar Chase is, like, sometimes people are like, "Oh, Jamar Chase, don't say that," or if you remember a couple months ago, his comments about Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, and it really made its way through the Chiefs land. And I love how honest he is in interviews. And sometimes, as he mentioned, he likes to mess with the media a little bit. But he was asked about Joe Burrow, not that he had been chatting with him or anything like that, but just like, hey, what do you expect? Will he be out there week 1? And he's like, look, I want Joe to take his time. I want him to be fully healthy. Nobody in his ear rushing him back out there. If he needs to set out a few games, we need him in the end. That was kind of the majority of what he said to NFL Network. And people took that and kind of went a little crazy. They were worried that Joe wasn't going to be healthy week 1. No, they do need Joe. What does that mean? And for me overall, and I know he spoke about it with Kay Adams and kind of cleared the air just a little bit more, but I don't have a problem with what Jamar Chase said. Jamar Chase knows Joe Burrow probably more than anybody else on the team. And not that he was having those conversations with Joe, because he pretty much cleared that up. Not that he was saying that to Joe or Joe was saying that to him, that he was, needed to get back out there or anything like that. It was just, hey, take care of yourself. Jamar took an extra game last year to get back on the field. I remember the Titans game. He was on the field in the pregame, and I thought, just out there running a little bit and stretching, and then decided no go. And he rested that game, and he came back for the Kansas City Chiefs game. So he allowed his body to rest, and that was the most important thing, because he wants Joe in the end. I'm fine with it, what he said. I didn't really have a big deal about it. It seems like everything is pointing to Joe being okay week 1. Zach Taylor was asked about it again. The timeline for Joe Burrow, I want to say in his Sunday or Monday press conference this week. And Zach Taylor said, somebody said, is it still several weeks? And if you watch the interview, Zach said, yeah. And he goes, several weeks from when I said it was several weeks, with a smirk on his face. So he's not trying to give any timelines. I really didn't take any more from that. This is normal for Joe Burrow to not have a training camp. It's absolutely odd to not have him out there, but it's semi-normal because it's been like that for 4 years. But what did you think about all that? And did you think it was kind of a little silly that everyone was freaking out about it?
Yeah. The Jamar Chase comments are basically just get fully healthy. And the way he said it sent such a firestorm of, like, if it's week 5, who cares? What he meant by that was like, we'll be okay if you need time. That did not mean like, we're looking at, probably week 5 for the timetable. What does Jamar Chase know? Yeah, I don't think they want to give anything away. I think if they had the option, every coach would just say indefinitely for any type of injury. Just
I don't blame you.
You look back, it's like, well, like, you're going to be public enemy number 1 if somehow Joe Burrow is a couple months and not a couple weeks. But I also think that they think it really is a couple weeks and, probably 2 weeks. And then Jamar Chase went on the Kay Adams thing and basically rescinded the idea of week 5. It was like, I'm just want him to be healthy. I don't want him to rush himself back. And if you say that, it sounds like, okay. When you add, how long would week 5 be? 11 weeks for a calf strain?
That would make me a little nervous.
That would be, that's longer than like a broken shoulder, arm, leg, anything. Broken bone. I know it's a completely different injury. I just feel like, and you don't want it to linger. I just, I think week 5 is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't think, what are your odds in your mind? Like week 1, I'm like 95% sure Joe Burrow would be out there.
I'm in the 90s because guys like Ian Rappaport, who, yes, he doesn't know a whole lot that's happening with the extension, and I'm totally fine with that because that's been quiet for both sides, and that's awesome. But when it comes to other things like injuries or other insider information, every single time that he is on NFL Network and he talks about Joe Burrow or any comments, he even talked about it after Jamar's comments on the NFL Network on Friday and was like, look, I have zero doubt that Joe's going to be ready for week 1. Like, he's like, I think it's going to be a no issue. He'll be out there. So hearing guys like that who know people inside the building, they're getting kind of that insider information. And I agree with you. Zach Taylor doesn't have to tell us anything. And if I'm Zach Taylor, I am going several weeks. I'm not saying a couple. I'm not saying a few. I'm saying several weeks until, and then if Joe's back out there sooner, then awesome. But I am not trying to be like optimistic about something that I'm still not sure of the timetable or turnaround. But everybody that keeps talking about it, it's like, hey, if this was regular season, maybe we see Joe out there. But Joe's around. Joe's in better shape than he was last year when he had his appendix taken out, when he lost 25 to 30 pounds. He's still with his trainer when the guys are at practice. He's still watching film from training camp. He's still in every single meeting. He's still in the building every time. Every single time the media is in there after training camp, the last 3 times, Joe Burrow has been in the locker room with the players. So he's still around. He's, doing everything that he would be doing if he was out there on the practice field. So for me personally, I didn't take too much of it, but everyone, it just, they get, I don't know, I think everyone just needs to breathe a little bit. Like Joe Burrow said after they started 0-2 last year, just relax. Relax.
I think that's
where I'm at.
Long and short of it was just chill out. This shouldn't actually be a long-term thing. The hardest thing in this age of media is patience, though, because oh man, everything is so instantaneous. If we didn't find out what the Burrow injury actually was within 30 minutes, down.
That made me nervous. I'm not gonna lie about that part. I was scrolling on our podcast that night. I'm like, okay, is there any?
Me too. But I'm just saying, it's even though it's. I feel like there's no patience for anything. Like if a rookie starts slow, it's what a bad pick. What a mistake. Look at this other guy who had a sack once.
They're doing it with Miles Murphy, some people. I'm like, this dude is a training camp.
They had that agenda when he was picked. I think the second he was picked and it wasn't Michael Mayer or it wasn't, exactly who they wanted, they're like, I don't like this. So the training camp thing is also always wild to me. It's like, guys, it's practice. It's training camp. I've seen the takes on the safeties too. It's like, well, I don't see the safeties making any highlight plays. Like, it's the safeties and it's practice. Who cares?
Do you know
I'll carry like week 3 if that's the case.
Do you know how boring training camp is? I mean, when I used to go down there and cover it with the Enquirer, you're in the heat for 90-degree weather for 2 hours and you were just watching guys run drills. Like it is so I'm sorry. I trust Joe. If Joe was a rookie, well, Joe's already been through that his rookie year. He didn't have a training camp.
Yeah, in 2021, he was terrible in training camp. We all heard Jamar Chase was terrible in training camp. Oh, wow. He must have been a bad pick, right?
I trust his football IQ. I think he's still getting the work in, like Zach Taylor said. None of that is changing. He's still working with his trainer when the guys are out on the field. So
Pat Mahomes, also terrible rookie training camp.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were saying he threw like more interceptions than completed passes, all this others. Who is keeping track? Who started that? Who started keeping track of the quarterback, like writing down stats in training camp? It's like, why?
The Lamar Jackson one has been really big in the news.
Dak Prescott, he said it. Yeah. Oh, I live near Pittsburgh now. I feel like every day you get the Kenny Pickett like full stat. Like he was 13 of 18 for 212 yards. It's like, what? Who cares?
I didn't even know that they counted yards and training.
Somebody out there is. It's crazy. They're not just counting, completions, incompletions. I've seen the Justin Fields one where it's like he couldn't complete a pass today, and another one it's like he only had one incomplete pass and it was a drop. It's like, man, it's training camp.
And at the end of the day, look, would it be great if Joe was out there for guys like Irv Smith, the offensive line, getting some reps with them? But Joe has already had more July practices than he's ever had in his NFL career.
I do feel like that comment was almost like tongue in cheek because he had one more July practice. Well, he had a few more.
It was. I mean, and Joe, I don't know. Maybe I should be like, you know what? It would be really extremely important. Of course, everybody would rather Joe be out there, but he's not out there, and that's just what it is. And next offseason, I hope nobody brings up that he's healthy. I hope it's all just.
That's what I never did.
It's training camp. It's training camp. Joe is training camp. So yeah.
Speaking of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on.
Number six player in the NFL, according to the players.
That's the highest. Again, none of this stuff really matters, but we are going to fill time with it. When it comes to number 6, is that the highest Bengals player has ever been ranked on that top 100?
I would think so.
You don't think so?
I do think so. I think that's the highest.
AJ Green was.
I don't think he was ever above that because your top 5 is usually like 2 to 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And until Joe Burrow, when did this start? Because I don't think this was here in 2005 with Carson Palmer and any chance of that happening, which I also don't even think he would have been number 6. But yeah, I think it's just Joe Burrow because you look at it's a quarterback if it's somebody that high, and the Bengals haven't had a quarterback with that level of talent. So Geno, AJ, I feel like they probably topped around like 15 maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Look that up.
But overall, I will get right back to Joe Burrow being number 6. But I'm just saying the underdogs of the AFC got 3 in the top 10. You get Travis Kelce over Joe Burrow.
I could see that. Well, he's the best tight end in the league, and he's a walk-in Hall of Famer. I feel like people are going to be first ballot Hall of Famer, second best tight end I've watched with, maybe third, probably third best tight end I've watched with my eyeballs.
I was a little surprised.
I know. I get it. He did just have a great year. AJ Green, by the way, topped out from my quick research at 16.
Ooh.
And Geno Atkins. Oh, wow. It doesn't look like Geno was ever that high. 68? 63, I think is the highest I see. Well, in 2018? Maybe I'm wrong there. I feel like this was before 20. If it was like in 2012, he would probably be pretty high up there.
Yeah. Overall, Joe gets 6. A lot of people surprised that Jalen Hurts, of course, Jalen Hurts went to the Super Bowl. And he had a good year, that he was ahead of Joe Burrow when it comes to the rankings. I'm going to say this about the top 100 and everything you need to know about the top 100 when it comes to the NFL players voting on this. DJ Reader did not make the list. T. Higgins did not make the 100 list. Jamar Chase was voted 39th best NFL player in the league. So I don't really put a lot into what this ranking means or what it is. Credit to the NFL because they can keep putting this out there. And they did every single day, every single week. We got the new rankings and it was content. People loved it. Well, they loved it and hated it on social media.
Well, there's nothing that generates better interactions, I think, than listing the players.
Yeah.
That's all people really seem to do on there. It's like, is Joe Burrow the second best quarterback? And then a bunch of fights. Is he the third best? Some people be like, I don't think he's in the top 5. And they'll be like, you see once in a while, like, I think he's better than Mahomes. And it's just like, this is all people really care about.
Absolutely just silly. So overall, it's there. Joe Burrow, look, I feel like he's a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. I do. I think it's Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow right now, and I hope it's like that for several years to come when it comes to those battles. But that stuff doesn't mean anything. But credit to Joe. He's number 6 in the NFL, and that's a pretty cool thing, being one of the highest Cincinnati Bengals. But yeah, when I saw Jamar Chase when he was in 39 and DJ Reader didn't even make the list, I'm like, sorry. I think Lamb was ahead of Jamar Chase at one point, or it was this year in the rankings, and I just take it for what it is. It's players going in there and saying, okay, I have to write my favorite.
And also remember that it is based off of, by the way, I was wrong. AJ Green topped out number 9 from what I'm seeing. But it is also based off of the year. So Jamar Chase missed some time. That's going to negatively impact, how he gets ranked in that.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. Not a big deal, but it's there. And the good news is training camp's almost over and regular season's almost here. And it was a good week for the Cincinnati Bengals. You get Logan Wilson extended. You have new uniforms that could be coming out soon to be determined on what those look like. But I'm all for it. But I can't even wrap this up. But any thoughts as we close this podcast?
Yes, I also stupidly correct. Geno Atkins I found at 36 in 2013. So I want to correct both of those that by quick search didn't work out as well as I hoped. And can you guess the only Bengal to make it in 2011? It's based off the 2010 year, not based off the 2011 year.
I was going to say Terrell Owens, but
it was T.O. 91. He was number 91 on the list.
Hall of Famer Terrell Owens. Cincinnati Bengals.
That's how you know these players are just voting for guys they like. 2010 T.O. who was pretty good. He was fine. He was surprisingly good. He was either at or near 1,000 yards in that season. Oh man, I'm gonna look it up.
Never forget that year.
I still have a T.O. shirt.
I'll never forget that year.
Do you have a T.O. shirt somewhere?
They had training camp. I'm going to wrap this up, Nick. I promise. But
983 yards, 9 touchdowns. So it was a pretty good year.
That's very surprising to me. But they had training camp in Georgetown, and all of the TVs went down there when they signed T.O., and it was such a big deal. And him and Chad were friends, and oh my gosh, it's so
T.O.
crazy.
show.
So crazy. It's so crazy. But yeah, so that should tell you everything about the top 100. That it's something for everybody to talk about until we get to regular season, and credit to the NFL because they can do that. You have anything coming up on All Bengals?
Soon, but not yet. Well, after the preseason game, I know, check it out. I'll write something on what happened in there, but yeah, other stuff also soon, but not yet. I'm working on it. I'm rewatching The Offense right now, but I want to rewatch all of it before I try to put out an article.
Cool. Make sure you check it out. Plenty will be over there on All Bengals. Also, you can follow them on Twitter, Bengals_stands. You can follow me at LNDS Patterson. We'll have more as the Cincinnati Bengals finally hit the field for the first preseason game, and they had joint practice with the Packers at Paycor Stadium this week. Thank you for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.